Good morning. All right, so I'm going to go through the study guide with you. Make sure that you are checking it. So if you have a printer at home or mom or dad could print your study guide for you, it would be good if you could have that on paper and just kind of check as we're going through. Otherwise, you'll have to split your screen and just correct as we're going along. Okay, so your test is either Friday or next Monday. So first thing we want to look at is the order of the words for our ratios. So directions, write the ratios. Forks to spoons. So you have to make sure that you put the number of forks on the top or first, and the number of spoons on the bottom or second, depending on how you choose to write this. So counting the forks, I've got 1, 2, 3 forks, and I've got 1 spoon. So the ratio of forks to spoons, you could either tell me is 3 to 1, or you could write 3 to 1, or you could write 3 to 1. Explain. Remember, we always start every explanation with the words for every. For every. Now, you have to also pay attention to the order of the words in which it was asked. It's asking for forks to spoons. So, for every 3 forks, there is 1 spoon. So you have to write the ratio and then explain to me what that means. Number 2, fill in the missing values and write equivalent ratios. Remember when we were working on this a couple weeks ago in class, I said always highlight the initial ratio at the beginning of your table. You always want to go back to that first ratio to find your missing terms. So first we're looking for a relationship between 4 and 16. So we all know that 4 times 4 is 16. So to find my missing term, I'm going to multiply 3 times 4. So that first missing term would be 12. Now that I've solved for that, I'm going to look at my last box. And I see a 3 and a 30. So I know that that's times, that's times 10. And that is times 10. So our equivalent ratios are 3 to 4 is equal to 12 to 16 is equal to 30 to 40. That would be your final answer for number 2. Okay, sorry about that. Ignore. We're going to read the directions in the box. Write a rate that represents the diagram. So when we were working on this type of a problem, I said you could choose any rate that you wanted. I like even numbers, so I'm going to choose 2 even numbers. Now you have to also label every rate. So look at what these are labeled over here. So my rate would be 32 quarts to 20 containers. I'm going to choose a different color. Another acceptable answer, you could write 16 quarts to 10 containers. Directions, write a unit rate for the situation. Remember, whenever we write a unit rate, the number on the bottom has to be a 1. So first, remember, I've always said that I prefer to write my rates and ratios to look like fractions because the math for me is easier to do if it looks like a fraction. So first I'm going to put, remember I said you always put the first term on the top, reading from left to right, and we always put the second term on the bottom. So if Miss Jardine can score 12 goals in 3 hours, The question is, if the number on the bottom has to be a 1, how many can she score in 1 hour? And the rule that we went over and over and over was we always divide the numerator by the denominator. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. So my unit rate would be 4 goals to 1 hour. Same directions for number 5. Write a unit rate. So if it's going to be a unit rate, I'm going to go ahead and put a 1 on the bottom so I don't forget. Remember, the first term always goes on the top. You've got 1,200 calories to 3 liters. To find the unit rate, it's always numerator divided by denominator. Well, I know that 12 divided by 3 is 4. And then I've got 2 extra zeros over here, so that must be 400. So if there are 1,200 calories in 3 liters, there are 400 calories in 1 liter. Remember, labeling your rates and ratios is always required. That way we need to know what you're talking about. All right, moving on to page 2. So if I go to Kroger and I find a 6-pack of drinks and the price is $4.50, I'm trying to figure out the unit rate or the unit price. How much am I paying for 1 drink? Okay, so remember, we always put the first term on the top and the second term on the bottom. Sorry, my little pen is not working very well. So $4.50 for 6 drinks is how much for 1 drink? Anytime I'm asked to find the unit rate, I go ahead and label my 1 something on the bottom so I don't forget. Now we're going to do division. Remember, to find the unit rate, it's numerator divided by denominator, just like we've been doing for weeks. So $4, don't forget my decimal, $4.50 divided by 6 drinks. Since there's no decimal in the divisor, this decimal is going to go straight up. 6 cannot go into 4. 6 times 7 is 42. Subtracting it 3, drop your 0, and 6 times 5 is 30. So make sure you include your $ to label this as money. I'm paying 75 cents for 1 drink. That is your final unit rate. 75 cents for 1 drink. Make sure you've got a 1 on the bottom and make sure you've labeled all of your rates and ratios. All right. 320 yards in 8 minutes is how much per 1 minute? Remember, unit rate means we have a 1 on the bottom. So let's go ahead and put that 1 minute on the bottom. So 320 yards in 8 minutes is how much per 1? How do we find unit rate? Numerator divided by denominator. So I'm going to set up my little division problem. 320 divided by 8. We all know 8 times 4 is 32. And I'm going to need a 0 placeholder because 8 cannot go into 0. So 40 yards to 1 minute. That's your unit rate. Make sure you label and make sure you have a 1 on the bottom. All right, moving on. Decide whether the following rates are equivalent. 24 laps in 6 minutes compared to 72 laps in 8 minutes. Decide whether the rates are equivalent. Remember, every problem that we've done in class like this, we've always found the unit rate and then we've compared the unit rates. So since I have 2 separate problems to solve, I'm going to divide my workspace into 2 halves. So I'm going to do 24 laps to 6 minutes is how much per 1 minute? Numerator divided by denominator, 24 divided by 6 is 4. Compared to 72 laps in 18 minutes is how much per 1 minute. Now remember, you guys are allowed to use your calculators. So if you go to your calculator and divide 72 by 18, you will see that that is 4. Now, to determine whether or not they're equivalent, we have to look at our unit rates. 4 laps to 1 minute compared to 4 laps to 1 minute, that would be a big yes. If your unit rates are equivalent, then your rates are equivalent as well. You can buy 20 fluid ounces of shampoo for $4.40 or 24 ounces for $4.80. Which is the better buy? Again, I'm going to divide my workspace in half. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight. You guys are always allowed to, and I always encourage you to use a highlighter on your test. I'm going to highlight my 2 different rates in 2 different colors. So remember, the dollars always go on the top. $4.40 for 20 ounces. I need to find the unit rate. Is how much for 1 ounce? Compared to $4.80 for 24 ounces is how much for 1 ounce? So remember, it's numerator divided by denominator. So I'm going to divide $4.40 by 20. Your decimal is going to go straight up. 20 cannot go into 4. 20 times 2 is 40. Subtract. And 20 times 2 is 40 with a 0 remainder. So this is 22 cents. So make sure you label with your dollar sign 0.22. So this price, unit price, is 22 cents per ounce. Now we have to solve for brand B. Numerator divided by denominator, $4.80 for 24 ounces. Decimal goes straight up. 24 cannot go into 4. 24 times 2 is 48. And we're going to need a 0 placeholder. Oh, so this one is 20 cents per ounce. So brand A, I'm paying 22 cents for 1 ounce of shampoo. Brand B, I'm paying 20 cents per ounce. Question, which one is the better buy? Brand B. You always want to pay a cheaper price. If the 2 shampoos are pretty comparable, you want to pay the cheaper price. Write the percent as a fraction or a mixed number in simplest form. Say what? Write the percent as a fraction or a mixed number in simplest form. Show all work. All right, so if I'm going to turn 14% into a fraction, a percent is always out of 100. So the first thing I'm going to do is put 14 over 100. Now, I know that those can be reduced because those are both even numbers. How do we reduce a fraction? We make a division ladder. Even numbers are divisible by 2. So that gets me to 7 and 50. And that is in simplest form. So the only acceptable answer for this one is 7/50. 37% as a fraction or a mixed number. It's only going to be a mixed number if you have greater than 100%. Now, going back to the very first week of school, I remember that 37 is a prime number and it cannot be reduced. So the final answer on that one would be 37/100. 10.5%. So the first thing, a percent is out of 100, right? But I have taught you guys in the last few weeks that you can never, ever, ever, ever have a decimal in a fraction. But remember what I did teach you. You are allowed to move that decimal 1 place to the right, add a decimal down here, move it 1 place to the right, add a 0. Oh, so 10.5 hundredths is equal to 105 thousandths. Now, I notice that these end with a 5 and a 0, and Miss Jardine taught me in the very first week of school that numbers ending in 0s and 5s are divisible by 5. So I'm going to set myself up a division ladder. I know that 5 times 20 is 100, so 5 times 21 must be 105. Now, if I focus on my 10, I know 10 divided by 5 is 2, and then add 2 zeros. Oh, that was easy. 21 200ths. 124%. 124%. A percent is always out of 100. Now, that's improper. If I divide 124 by 100, I get 1 and 24 hundredths. So I know I'm going to have a 1 as a whole number, and then I'm going to have to reduce this fraction. So I'm going to make a division ladder. Even numbers are divisible by 2. So we get 12 and 50. Oh, I've got 2 more even numbers. I'm going to divide by 2 again. That gets me to 6 and 25. So 1 and 6 25ths would be your final answer for number 13. Always read the directions before you start doing your work. Turn the fraction into a percent. Okay, so you know what a lot of kiddos do sometimes by accident? They give me another fraction, they give me a decimal. Always highlight your directions, and then what I like to do is give myself any clues for my final answer so I don't make a silly mistake. Turn the fraction into a percent. Well, remember, when we were doing this together in class, a percent is always out of 100. First thing you always want to do is check that denominator. Is that denominator a factor of 100? Yes. 20 times 5 is 100, and 13 times 5 is 65. 65 hundredths is 65%. Turning a fraction into a percent, always check your denominator. Is 5 a factor of 100? Yes. I'm asking that because we're trying to get to a percent, which is out of 100. So 5 times 20 and 4 times 20 is 80 hundredths. So 4/5 is equal to 80%. Find the percent of the number. Show all work. Find the percent of the number. Okay, so this is where we had percent over 100 equals is over of. 25% over 100, whoops, equals how much out of 64? So remember, if you had a math test worth 64 points and you got a 25%, how many problems did you get correct? Well, 25% is 1/4, right? So we're trying to figure out what's 1/4 of 64. So this is where we do cross products. 100 times x is 100x. Do cross products. 25 times 64 is 1600. Draw your mirror. Divide by 100. Divide by 100. Left side cancels. Cancel a 0 pair. Cancel another 0 pair. We're down to 16 divided by 1 equals 16. X equals 16 would be your final answer on that one. Percent over 100 equals is over of. Cross products. Cross products. Draw your mirror. Divide by 100. Hundreds cancel over here. Excuse me. Cancel a 0 pair. Cancel another 0 pair. 60 divided by 1 is 60. Now that makes sense, right? Because if this number, I'm going to choose a different color. 120% is greater than 1 whole, right? So let's say that you invited 50 friends to your birthday party, but 60 friends showed up. If 50 out of 50 would have shown up, that would have been 100% of your guests. But if 60 out of 50 show up, 120% of your friends showed up to your birthday party. All right. If you guys can remember this formula, it will help you solve numerous problems forever. Percent over 100. Oh, now I've got my is equals is over of. Of what number? I don't know. So if you got a 60% on a math test, you got 24 problems correct out of how many? Cross products. Cross products. Draw your mirror. Divide by the coefficient. Cross out a zero pair. Oh, look what we have here. 24 divided by 6 is 4, right? And then we've got an extra 0, so x equals 40. If you got a 60% on a test, that means you got 24 out of 40 correct. You all are allowed to use your calculator. So on your calculator, if you do 8,000 divided by 160, you get 50. X equals 50. You guys know you can pause this video at any time if I'm going too fast. Okay, complete the statement. Round to the nearest hundredth. Yes, you will get points taken off if you don't round to the nearest hundredth. So we do not want to get in the habit of writing 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 digits past the decimal. Okay, when you get that many numbers, that number starts not making any sense at all. So we definitely want to round to the nearest hundredth. So this is when you want to use that purple sheet, your conversion sheet that I gave to you, because you're going to need your conversion factor. So we're converting 4 quarts to a number of liters. So if you go to your conversion chart, you're going to see that 1 quart is equal to 0 and 95 hundredths liters. So remember, if I put quarts on the top over here and I'm converting to quarts, then quarts has to go on the top over here. 4 quarts, now I don't know how many liters, so that's going to be my X. Multiply cross products. 1 times X is X. Go to your handy dandy calculator. You are going to multiply 95 hundredths times 4. And that comes out to 3 8/10. Now, that only goes out to the tenths, so we don't have to round, right? Because we don't even have a digit in the hundredths or the thousands place. Converting 6.4 inches to a number of centimeters. Go to your purple sheet, find your conversion factor for inches to centimeters, and you'll see that it says that 1 inch is to 2.54 centimeters, as 6.4 inches is to what? Remember, you have to put the same terms on the top. So this is going to be my X. 1 times X is X. Go to your calculator, multiply 2 and 54 hundredths times 6 4/10. Now it says X equals 16 and 256 thousandths, but the directions say round to the nearest hundredth. So what I'm going to do is draw myself a box around that. But you have to look at the digit in the thousands place. That is going to tell you to round this 5 up to a 6. So that final answer would be 16 and 26 hundredths. Okay. Customer pays 9% tax on a sweatshirt that costs $64. How much do they pay and what is the total cost? 9% tax. Percent over 100 equals how much for a $64 sweater? Cross products. Cross products. Divide by the coefficient. Remember, we always divide by the number attached to the x. If you go to your calculator and divide 576 by 100, it's going to say 5.76. I'm going to go to green for money. So the tax is going to be $5.76. Now the total cost, I'm going to have to add, so you can use your calculator. I'm just going to show it here so you can see what I'm doing. We have to add the cost of the sweatshirt plus the tax. The tax is an additional cost. So I'm actually going to owe $69.76 for my sweatshirt. Okay, we are down to fair game review. You've got 3 problems that you should know how to solve because we've been doing these all year long. Good old-fashioned division. First number goes on the inside, second number goes on the outside. 24 cannot go into 8. 24 times 3 is 72. And 24 times 5 is 120. Now, for these on the study guide and your test, you do have to show your work, but you can check yourself with your calculator. So answer is 35, but you still have to show me the process of your division. Now, this one you cannot, I guess you could use your calculator to make your improper fractions, but then after that, you'll have to show me all work. So remember, this is 1 times 4 plus 3. So that is 7/4. Make them improper. 1 times 5 plus 3 is 8/5. Cross cancel. Multiply numerators. Multiply denominators. That is improper. Numerator, remember this fraction bar means division. That fraction 14/5 is asking what is 14 divided by 5. So we're going to figure it out. 2 4/5. Okay, find the GCF and the LCM of 45 and 36. So remember, we want to make a division ladder. I'm actually going to put the 36 in front. I know they're both divisible by 9, so I know 9 times 4 is 36 and 9 times 5 is 45. The greatest common factor is the number sitting on the outside of your ladder. So the greatest common factor, or the biggest number that you can divide by, is 9. And then remember, the L for least common multiple is multiplying 9 times 4 times 5. Well, I'm going to make this a little simpler. I know 4 times 5 is 20. 20 times 9, 2 times 9 is 18, and add a 0. You can also use your calculator to do your multiplication. So LCM equals 180. All right, remember to bring all of your notes and your calculator and your conversion sheet for your test. You are allowed to use all of that.